6:45 p.m. We'll start the open forum pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-6, subsection D. First one on the agenda is Richard Nato.
Thank you, Mr. Boucher. Mr. Haller has asked if he can go ahead with me, which is fine by me, if it's all right with you.
Fine, go ahead, Dan.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Daniel Haller, 62 Douglas Pike, North Smithfield. Tonight, for the payment of the bills, you have a bill in the amount of $4,387.50. This is payable to an attorney, Anthony Cartone. I hope I'm saying the gentleman's name correctly. And this is for the sewer issue in Woonsocket. To date, we have spent almost $9,000 of town money on this project, looking to go to arbitration. I spoke to the people in Woonsocket today, and I asked several questions. One of the questions I asked was, what happens if, in fact, nothing is agreed to by November? The answer was simple. There's nothing agreed to by November when this is shut off, the water is shut off by Woonsocket, then they can charge any rate they want to the taxpayers. Kind of puts us into a box. I'm unable to find out whether or not in this arbitration, the arbitrators will allow the Woonsocket, if they win, to tag on the legal fees that are incurred by them in defending themselves against this town of North Smithfield. I ask you because I think there's a lot of things that are floating around, and I don't think that people really understand the repercussions of what's going to happen in this arbitration. If you lose, you go to Superior Court. Go to Superior Court is going to cost a lot more money. And I ask you to pull that bill tonight and not pay it, but rather hold a public hearing for it. Hold a public hearing in June and tell the people what the alternatives are. If we go this way, yes, there's a possibility of the rates increase. If we go this way, that means continue to go to Superior Court, it's going to cost us more. We've already spent $9,000. I think that you could be up at 6 figures on this. And to turn around and keep going down the road with people not knowing. And then in November, if nothing happens, and you know how long cases last in the Superior Court. It could be January, February, March of next year before something comes up. That's wrong. Because the people of North Smithfield will be sitting here not knowing what the story is, with rates that may increase, and no alternative. You can't go back to the judge because there's no contract. I ask you to pull the bill. I ask you to do a public hearing on this and let the people know and get a sense from the people if they really want this arbitration to go forward. Mr. Nato is going to speak on the arbitration a lot more deeply and with more knowledge than I have. But I will tell you this, I think this is like throwing money down a rat hole. We cannot win with this thing going to court with a time frame. We come to November and they start jacking that rate up. You don't know how high they're going to go. You don't know if we can't get an agreement for them not to do that and then go forward. That's a whole different ballgame. But I don't believe we have that. That's why I came tonight to speak, and thank you for listening to me. And Mr. Nato.
Thank you. Richard Nato, 29 Homestead Avenue. I'm here because I am really concerned about what's going on with the wastewater treatment negotiations and potential arbitration. I'm not sure why we're fighting with the city over this. I've read the contract from 1977. I've read the termination notice that they sent us in October of 2013. And the way I read the contract, it's pretty simple. Under section 502, it says that once the 30-year period of the contract is up, which was 2007, that either party, whether it be Woonsocket or North Smithfield, has the right to terminate the contract, terminate service with 3-year notice. We got that notice in 2013. Now, on November 1st, what's going to happen to this town? All of the people that are hooked up to the Woonsocket sewer system are either going to get charged an incredibly higher rate from the city of Woonsocket, Or, I guess, maybe you guys will be out delivering porta potties to everybody. Because there's no real answer that I have seen coming from this council with respect to this issue. Arbitration isn't gonna help us. If it does go to Superior Court, one thing I would correct that Mr. Halloran said, it's not gonna be January, February, or March of next year. It could be 5 years in the Superior Court. Add on another couple of years in the Supreme Court for appeals, you know, see you in 7 years. And maybe we'll have a final decision. We really need to do something now with this. And I would echo Mr. Halloran's request for a public hearing so that you can see and hear from the people what they want you to do with respect to this issue. If this continues and there is no resolution, you're going to kill property values for everybody that's hooked up to the Woonsocket sewer system, because nobody's going to want to buy a house when they don't know what is going to happen to the effluent that's discharged into the system. You're going to ruin people's lives. You're going to turn the entire town into Andrews Terrace, which the town council several years ago screwed over by canceling phase 2. And those people are sitting there in a dire straits for years, and the town has done nothing about it. You know, there's been a lot of proposals, nothing's been done. That's what I'm seeing with this council with respect to the wastewater treatment, and I would urge you to do something, negotiate with the city, get something done, because going to Narragansett Bay Commission, going to Barraville, building our own plant, none of those are viable alternatives. Our own consultants have said the cheapest thing to do is to keep tied into Woonsocket. I ask you to consider doing that and saving the people of this town a lot of anguish, a lot of heartache, and a lot of money over the next several years. If you don't do that, my only recommendation is that you greatly increase this year's budget for litigation, because you're going to need it, both with the city and with the people of the town who are suing this town, because you're ruining our houses.
Sharon?
Sharon Myasty, 796 Old Smithfield Road, and I'm here regarding the request for moratorium on the wind turbine. My family, our property directly abuts Ruth Latico's property where this has been proposed. Our property, I believe, is within the fall zone. If that's how it falls down, it will be on my property. We have a lot of concern. I was very shocked to find out that the planning board approved this 465-foot project within one meeting. They did ask questions, and they got answers from the developer, and that was it. There was no, let's do a little more research and study. Mr. Erickson brought up the Down Village one. Well, that was years ago, a few years ago, and that one never came to fruition. More research has been done today on the study of wind turbines. They're not really green energy. We live in a poor to fair wind classification area. It is not, we're not on the coast where we get wind gusts. It has to be a steady stream of wind. So the planning board passes through one meeting. We came as soon as we knew, because we were butters, we got a certified letter, and we tried to come to the planning meeting, but there was no time for public comment. They did explain to us the process. The minutes for this meeting on April 7th, we just posted today, because I asked the question, where are the minutes? And if you look at some of the things that they did ask questions on the liquor study, well, trees. It only happens when it's sunny. And if there's trees, evergreen trees, it'll stop it. Well, how many 465-foot trees have you seen? It stands well above, it's higher than the Superman pole. It's higher than the Statue of Liberty. These things are industrial. This is a rural residential neighborhood. And how we can do this for one property owner, to me, it's just, it's unacceptable. What about doing an impact study? Environmental, flicker, noise, wildlife. There's watersheds all over behind our properties. There's a reservoir. What is it going to do to that? they done any studies? The health and welfare of the neighbors, even traffic. We live on a historic country road that is extremely narrow, curvy. How are we gonna get this monstrous wind turbine through our neighborhoods? The town doesn't have a comprehensive plan that's been updated yet. In 2007, it's supposed to be updated every 5 years. That needs to be updated, and the zoning ordinance needs to be brought up to date for the wind turbines. A lot of other towns are doing it. Right now, we open ourselves up for developers like this. And I just want a show of hands of who is here today to voice their opinion about the wind turbine. These are the concerned citizens. Please protect our interest and not just the interest of one resident, and vote for a moratorium on the wind, to stop the wind turbines.
Mr. Erickson? Bob Erickson, Town Planner. I just want to talk about the process that's going on now. The zoning board hearing on the request from the developer has been canceled or postponed until well after the appeal process takes place. The appeal process is going to be scheduled shortly, and everybody will be notified. That's part of the appeal process. Tonight, I see that the moratorium agenda item is way in the back of the agenda where we never get to in half the meetings. And I would hope that it can be moved up to the front because it just needs to be addressed tonight. Whether you can do it before you go into executive session, I wish you could, but that's the status of it. The appeal takes precedence over the hearing from the zoning board. So the zoning board will be a board of appeals rather than the zoning board of review. Gary Pilati?
I'm Gary Pilati, 10 Bourget Court. I'm on the planning board, so I was at the April 7th meeting that voted on that wind turbine. To reiterate something Bob just said, you have a meeting, you have an item on the agenda today about having a wind turbine ordinance moratorium. As a member of the planning board, I can tell you that like anyone else trying to do a job, you need the right tools to do the job. We don't have any tools in place when faced with a project like that. So the project comes to us like so many other miscellaneous small projects, and we have only the most basic opportunity to look at that project and assess it before moving it along. So I urge you, as Mr. Erickson said, to take the item that's way near the end of the agenda and see how many people are here, and rather than make them wait all night, move it up to the front and have a serious conversation about putting a wind ordinance in place. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may. I'm happy to see Mr. Erickson's asking this to be moved up on the agenda as well as Mr. Pilati. That was my intent all along. I would also like to say that I've had dialogue with the solicitor. We're working on something with Mr. Galeozzi will bring us up to speed after we come out of the executive session. So before we go into executive session, should there be anybody else that needs to speak before we move on? Is anybody else?
Dean, can't read the last name.
Nilo?
Paul Sauce.
Good evening, Paul Swartz, Sales Hill Road, representing the Conservation Commission. I emailed all of you our official position regarding the wind energy facilities. I just want to present it here in the public forum. The Conservation Commission, acting in its capacity as an advisory board to the Town Council, recommends a moratorium be placed on the construction of wind energy facilities until an ordinance establishing regulations, including appropriate studies of environmental, health, and safety issues, is put in place. Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to speak?
Well, I just finished.
No, just a second.
Is Mr. Swords the last?
Who's the last one?
Okay, again, the intent was to move this up on the agenda, and to all the folks that turned out, what the council is going to do. Now, Mr. President, it's up to the council. We have an executive session which we had scheduled way in advance, and I understand that legal team is here from interlocal to advise us.
10 minutes, you need 10 minutes of your time.
10 minutes. So, Mr. President, if you don't mind, I would like to take the 10 minutes for the executive session, and then immediately coming out, I would like to move up under new business, section 8F, discussion by council, vote or other action on a request for ordinance regarding a moratorium on wind turbine and for review by the ad hoc ordinance review committee.
Second by, motion by Councilman Zawinski, second by Councilwoman Nato, and the chair. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mrs. Nato?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, subsection A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. 1, Tammy Boss versus Town of North Smithfield, PC 2015-3772. 2, potential litigation dash, can we foster all the Woonsocket into jurisdiction of wastewater? We just take the first.
Yeah, but right now we have to open our meeting first. We haven't opened our meeting yet. This is just the open forum.
I am so passionate, I wanted to get on with this. Okay, let's open the meeting.
The open forum has been closed. Madam Clerk?
Order to protect all the affairs of council while also serving in positions of authority and responsibility.
Amen. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Here. Mrs. Nato? Here. Mr. Zalinski?
Present.
Mr. Boucher?
Present. No council.
Oh, thanks. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session. A, Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5, subsection A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation. Item 1, Tammy Boss versus Town of North Smithfield, Rhode Island, PC 2015-3772, and I would ask that we postpone potential litigation that is under executive session for Woonsocket jurisdiction wastewater. We can come out and go back in there.
Motion by Councilman Zawinski, second by the chair. Is any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mrs. Nato?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes.